All right. Before we go into the subject, I want to say never forget 24th anniversary of 9/11. Let's get into it. I stand corrected. So obviously yesterday, I did some videos, much like a whole bunch of other people did, and I had my final thoughts. But as we know, there won't be final thoughts. This is going to be talked about for a bit. Let's get right into it. So let me share what I'm seeing, and again, let me. This is what's being put in front of me by CNN. I don't know what side of the fence they're on, but the media can shapeshift. But let's just watch this.
The kickoff for Charlie Kirk's 14-city tour was here in Orem, Utah, about 40 miles away from Salt Lake City at Utah Valley University. Thousands of people, mainly students, were gathering in a large open courtyard. Minutes before the shooting, video from Kirk's own X account shows an open space and a barrier between the tent and the students, with multiple security guards standing at the fence line. Police say there were 6 campus police officers there as well. Kirk was a rock star among young conservatives, largely because of events like this, meeting college students up close on campuses across the country. Police say roughly 3,000 people showed up for this one, all watching and listening as it happened. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm going to give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Kirk is rushed into an SUV and taken to the hospital. Panic crowds ran as police jumped in.
And let's be advised, UVU in Orem had an active shooter at the Charlie Kirk event. We're getting several calls. We're trying to get more information.
In the scramble after Kirk was shot, video taken from inside a building captures what appears to be someone running across a rooftop. That rooftop is this building, called the Losi Center, less than 200 yards away from the spot where Kirk was hit. If that runner was the shooter, he would have been positioned about here. From this shot, you can see the rooftop of the Losi building is pretty easy to access. It's connected to another building by an elevated walkway, which, as you can see, is only separated from the roof by a railing. Aerial footage after the shooting shows police tape on the roof of the Losi building. And at about 12:36 p.m., an officer describes a possible suspect.
He's wearing jeans, black shirt, black mask, long rifle. Is on top of the building on the far north side, just east of the library, wearing jeans, black shirt, black vest.
6 hours later, Utah Valley University issued an all clear, saying the threat is over. Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old father of 2 young children, did not survive.
So take from that what you will. In fact, I forgot to do this yesterday. So for shits and giggles, you already know what they're going to say. All right, live right here. Okay, so people are obviously talking about it. All right, let me go back. I don't want to click on that one. Okay, they're all saying, people are almost fucking glorifying it. According to what I'm seeing, Trump wants to take them away from trans people. That's one small step in his Project 2025. I've yet to see that. All right, well, let's, for giggles, let me move on from those. All right, well, I don't want to watch that. Let's see what these two are saying, just for giggling shits. Okay, I'm trying to look for. Let's see. All right, that's old. All right, no, I don't want to watch that one. We go to videos.
Viral clip. all in good fun, all an element of sort of the political debate that happens in the country just as a matter of course, and has been the legacy of this country, different than virtually all other countries in the history of the world. Well, Charlie was doing that when suddenly a shot rang out. Apparently the shot was fired from approximately 200 yards away from on top of a building, and the bullet struck Charlie in the neck. And by the footage, which I certainly do not recommend watching, I hope that people stop trafficking the footage because it is horrifying
People are going to try
in every way.
it.
And Charlie should not be remembered like that. He should be remembered for what he was, which was a political superstar. And we'll get to my feelings for Charlie in a second and my experiences with Charlie and who Charlie was. The shot rang out from about 200 yards away, and it looks like effectively Charlie, he survived until he got to the hospital, but it looks like he was almost instantaneously killed. It's one of the most horrifying things I have ever seen in my entire life. I've known Charlie Kirk since he was 18 years old, which means that I would have been about 28, about 10 years older than Charlie. I was working at the time at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, where I was the editor-in-chief of a website called Truth Revolt. And Charlie showed up at the Breakers, which is kind of a ritzy hotel in Palm Beach. And he was fundraising. He had just started an organization that he was introducing around as Turning Point USA. Nobody ever heard of it. Nobody ever heard of him. I met Charlie. Charlie was an unending ball of energy at 18 years old. And one of the things that I've said around the company before is you cannot teach grit. It's a thing that cannot be taught. You either have it or you don't. There is no person with more grit, more get-go, more gumption, more enthusiasm and energy than Charlie Kirk. Didn't exist. It was almost exhausting. When Charlie was at the Breakers and we met Charlie and he was going around just moving around the room, introducing himself to everybody, saying he wanted to start a conservative activist organization that was going to transform how young people thought about politics. I remember turning to Jeremy Boring, who was also at David Horowitz Freedom Center at the time, and saying to Jeremy, that kid is going to be the head of the RNC one day. And we agreed on that at the time. And I've been saying it for years. And it turns out that Charlie was significantly more than that. It turns out that Charlie ended up founding the single most important political conservative organization of our era in Turning Point USA, driving hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people, to the polls, registering voters, putting up these enormous events that drew together tens of thousands of conservatives at one time, helping to lead the debates on the critical issues, going to college campuses. Again, all of this was because Charlie just never stopped moving, just never, ever stopped moving. And I watched Charlie grow from the outside. Obviously, Charlie and I are friends, but Charlie had closer friends than I was with Charlie. He had family, obviously, but watching Charlie over the course of his career from a fairly decent vantage point, Charlie was dedicated to making the country better and to making himself better at things. I remember when Charlie first started, he wasn't an amazing speaker. By the time he finished, he was a terrific speaker. Charlie didn't start off as somebody who was fluent in debate. By the time he finished, he was terrific at debate. Charlie started off as a pretty good fundraiser. He ended as an amazing fundraiser. Charlie Kirk was a coalition builder. He was somebody who's focused on the idea that in order to win power, to effectuate change, you actually do have to build coalitions. And that means talking to wide varieties of people, many of whom disagree with one another. And that's a difficult business. It's dirty business. It means that you're talking with a bunch of people you don't agree with nearly all the time. And Charlie mastered that art. On a personal level, Charlie, I watched him grow from a very young man, 18 years old, to become a father of two, become a husband. I watched Charlie grow in his religious belief. If you watch tapes of Charlie over the course of the last year, he almost invariably talks about God, talks about the Bible, talks about his belief in Christ. And Charlie was murdered for the great crime of speaking publicly about controversial issues with people in a normal conversation, in a normal debate and discussion setting. That is why he was murdered. We don't know yet the identity of the person who murdered Charlie Kirk, who assassinated Charlie Kirk. We don't know who that person was. The President of the United States has ordered all flags across the country lowered to half staff in honor of.
Yeah, so when I say stand corrected, there were some snippets where they had suspects, two people in custody at different times, but I guess the people they had, they couldn't determine, they couldn't find any connection those two had to the shooting. And I'm just going to flat out say, whoever did it knew what the fuck they were doing. 200 fucking yards away, clean shot. They knew what the fuck they were doing. Now, again, I'll see some people on the left side are, they're condoning it and they're in support of it. just like the way many people on both sides were in support of the Brian Thompson assassination by allegedly Luigi Mangione. Let's move forward.
Charlie Kirk again. It's just, I can't even believe these are words that are coming out of my mouth. I cannot even believe it, because Charlie was 31 years old. He was 31 years old. Absolutely just horrifying. And, you know, I know that on a religious level, obviously he's with God now. And for many people that you know, are religious, that's a cause for rejoicing, not for despair. For me, on behalf of the country, I don't despair on Charlie's behalf. I also believe that Charlie's with God, but I despair on behalf of my country. I you know, feel horrific for his family. I just think to myself, Charlie's sitting there and he's debating politics, and the next moment the bullet is passing through his neck, and I just think, poor Charlie, my friend, person I knew pretty well from the time he was, again, very, very young. It's just devastating in every way it's possible for it to be devastating. Just every way it's possible for it to be devastating. The President of the United States put out a statement on Truth Social, lamenting and mourning the death of Charlie Kirk. He said, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me. And now he's no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you." I don't know what this means for the country. I do not know what this means for America, truly. When political figures who just are out to discuss and debate in public are gunned down in cold blood, I do not know what we can expect next. On a personal level, obviously, I spent an awful lot of time on college campuses doing the same sort of stuff, debating, being out there, talking to people. And I've had, you know, significant security concerns before. Obviously, when I was at Berkeley, for example, they required something like 500 police officers. And I always thought it was overkill. I really did. I thought, you know, yeah, security team is saying you should put on a bulletproof vest. Okay, fine, I'll do it, but I think it's overkill. Do I need this many police officers? Nah, I mean, it's overkill. People would ask me about that. I'm sure Charlie had exactly the same feeling. In fact, I know Charlie had the same feeling because we'd had that conversation. And that you feel like, okay, well, you know, is it really that big? Okay, so somebody might take a swing or somebody might yell at you. Is it really that big a deal? This is America. In America, you don't hurt people for having different political opinions. You don't kill people for having different political opinions. This is not what America is. It is the opposite of what America is. And then gradually, it seems that in this country, we have come to the conclusion that if somebody disagrees with you strenuously enough politically, that violence is now a necessity. That if the systems don't align with what you wish they were, then murder is on the table. That if a person is murdered and you're a member of the media, that your first reaction should be to, if they had the wrong political views, imply or say openly that perhaps it was their political views that brought this on them. It is a terrible, terrible moment. And I don't know, to be honest with you, how we pull out of it, other than to just say utter intolerance for political violence of any way, shape, or form. Utter intolerance of it. It is just awful. I mean, I keep saying the same things over and over, but what do you say when somebody that you knew pretty well and somebody in the same line of work as you and somebody who is doing many of the things that you admired is just shot and killed? You know, I'm hesitant to show the footage of the shooting, so I'm not going to, because I don't think there really is a purpose to showing the actual footage. It's horrifying. And again, I don't think that there is a reason for that. Apparently, there's going to be a press conference starting fairly soon here from the White House about all of this. We'll obviously go to that when that happens. There is footage of Charlie interacting with the crowd at the Utah event. This is just moments before he was shot. It's clip 2. This is Charlie throwing shirts to the crowd. Unbelievable. MAGA hats and all the rest. He sits down. And a few minutes later, he was shot to death. You can see in the distance some of the buildings. Presumably one of those was used as the overlook from which he was murdered.
Hmm.
Charlie obviously is a family man.
How in the fuck did they get a rifle? That's clearly had to have been what was used, because you couldn't have done it with a pistol. Past security, into a gun-free zone.
Footage, I can't even watch the footage with his kids. It's just terrible. It's just the worst thing. But we should watch that footage together, because this is what happens when you let the evils of the human heart overcome you. You take people like Charlie Kirk with young kids out of the world for no reason other than you don't like his politics. Here's Charlie Kirk with his daughter on the Fox set. It's clip 5. Apparently, Charlie was rushed to the hospital by security. We know that he was still barely alive, apparently, in the car. I believe he died at the actual hospital. There was some news that had broken that he was in critical condition. There was a brief hope that he might be able to survive. But obviously, if you've watched the original tape of the shooting, I think that pretty much everybody knew, even from the original tape, that would have taken an extraordinary miracle. The miracle is that somebody like Charlie, who was a high school graduate, who never went to college, who built this thing out of nothing, was able to do that in this country. That is a miracle, and that's the miracle of the country. And I wonder whether that miracle is duplicable in a country where people are snuffed out at the age of 31 because people disagree with Charlie Kirk. The mainstream media, legacy media, some of them have been predictably awful. MSNBC's Matt Dowd had one of the worst comments of the day, and I think we should point this out, because people should understand that if this is the tack you choose to take, you are facilitating violence, truly. If you take the tack that if you say awful things in America, then the violence simply descends upon you, or deserves to descend upon you, because you are so threatening, that implication creates a permission structure for violence. You're not responsible for the shooter, but you are responsible for raising the temperature. I've said this 1 million times over the course of the last couple of years. Here's Matt Dowd, couldn't help himself. As Charlie's body was not yet cold, here's what Matt Dowd had to say over on MSNBC.
But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech, or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I lack the words. MSNBC's Katie Tur doing something similar. She suggested that the big worry here is that the Trump administration will use this all as a justification for some further action that they don't like.
Because as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as a justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next.
Unbelievable. Well, Kash Patel over the FBI apparently is announcing they have caught the shooter. We'll bring you details as soon as we know. There's also supposed to be, I was mistaken earlier, the press conference is not from the White House. That press conference is apparently going to come from local authorities, so we will have more information then. Joining me on the line is my friend Andrew Klavan. Drew, I don't even know what to ask you or what to say. I'm not sure there is anything to say, and it's our job to sort of fill the airtime. So, what?
Yeah, I was listening to you, and so many of you, because you were kind of kumbaya. It's discussed with you guys.
Through my mind is that we've seen over the course of the last several years an increasing justification that is being laid.
Are supposed to be as a people, and to say that is
just, Trump either brought it on himself or we're making jokes about it. All of that felt amateur hour, even compared to what we have just seen here. Not that their deaths mean any less, but Charlie's literal job was just to do First Amendment things. That's what he did for a living. What he did was raise his kids and take care of his wife and do free speech. That is what he did. He did First Amendment things, like what the base of the First Amendment is to be. And as you say, it would be unjustifiable no matter what his political views, but his views happen to be particularly mainstream conservative, like right down the line, mainstream conservative. And for that, Charlie was shot to death. And I don't know if our country cannot, if the left cannot stop claiming that its opponents are enemies, like true enemies that need to be destroyed. I just don't know where we go from here that can maintain anything like a functional republic.
Well, I think that we have to, I mean, if we're going to have faith in anything besides God, first we have to have faith in God, because he has always been providential toward this country and always let us the news out if we get the facts.
Give us some updates in just a moment. Apparently there's sort of a clash between what we are hearing from local authorities who are saying he's at large.
The news out if we get the facts out as
and hang in there. I mean, obviously, we're both praying for Charlie and his family and for the country.
His family.
And meanwhile, we're joined on the line by editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, Brent Scher. He's going to give us some updates in just a moment. Apparently, there's sort of a clash between what we are hearing from local authorities who are saying he's at large and Kash Patel saying the shooter has been caught. Brent will come on to explain what precisely is going on. Again, you know, I'm with Drew. I think that there will come a point here where I'm optimistic again about the country. I just don't feel that in this moment. I think it'd be very difficult to feel that in this moment about where we are. But Charlie was an optimist about the country, and I don't think that he was unjustified in that optimism. I do think that the vast majority of Americans look at this day for the horrifyingly horrific tragedy that it truly is, and that it is a small fringe. But I think that we should recognize that small fringes can make very large differences if they are not stopped and stopped cold. And that means that the people who justify violence, the people who wink and nod at the argument that political opposition is tantamount to murder or speech is violence and therefore should be met with violence, if that is not stopped, it's going to metastasize, because bad ideas are like cancer and they can be seeded anywhere and they have deadly effects. It's, again, extremely difficult to talk about all of this, obviously, and I'm sure it's very difficult for you to listen to it as well. The sort of bizarre controversy that broke out in Congress today is kind of amazing. So Speaker Johnson held a moment of silence for Charlie, and at a certain point, Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado called for a verbal prayer. She said, "I believe silent prayer gets silent results." And this somehow prompted a bunch of Democrats to actually protest, saying that school shootings go unacknowledged. And here is how it broke down, an ugly scene in the middle of a truly just unspeakably bad day. Here is the Speaker of the House and how it went down in Congress. This is clip 13.
The chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those in the gallery please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
They did have a moment of silence, but then controversy broke out when Representative Boebert asked for a verbal prayer as well.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise?
And so I would urge you, particularly in times of tragedy, to get off the internet and go be with human beings. Don't go to Blue on the show. Overall, most of the politicians have come out and sort of at the time, and obviously, as we get some more of the information, I'm sure that we'll learn more.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely.
Thanks so much for taking the time. What are you hearing out there?
So I think
a home for their hatred, because obviously, what Charlie was fighting for, things like tradition.
All right, so I've had enough of that. Because I saw somewhere in the video where he mentioned something about Luigi Mangione, which was a whole nother, topic in itself. All right, so it's bass fishing 101. One day ago. Shorts. see what he says live. Oh, he ain't saying shit. So that pretty much kind of proves my point. So let me just stop the stream. Anyhow, let me get rid of that. Stop the screen, rather. Yeah, so anyhow, obviously, I stand corrected on a whole bunch of counts. One, my video final thoughts wasn't. And two, I guess the suspect is still at large. Clearly, this person, whoever he or she is, made the shooter Brian Thompson look like a joke. Again, I'm not a fan of Charlie Kirk, but still, just because somebody says something, disagrees with you and whatever, that doesn't mean they should be fucking, murdered just because we have different beliefs. We get outraged, when a hate crime, white people, kill a black person. We get outraged at that. So make it make sense. Or, people get outraged, when somebody who's LGBTQ or trans, we'll throw that in the general because that has happened. When they get taken off the equation. So we see it on both sides. Anyhow, I got real life shit to do. I don't want to stare at a computer all day. I'll talk to you.